Okay, so here we are for part 2 of the masterclass, which I did for her showcasing. And Novi, you should have your presentation. Wow, this is not a presentation, right?
No, just ideas.
All right.
Okay. Did you launch the recording?
I launched the recording. I have the impression that a few people still have to enter.
Yes.
So maybe we wait. Yes, wait a few more minutes, 2-3 minutes, and then we start. Have some drinks. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Okay, we'll slowly start again. Before I move to the second session, I want to go back to our previous discussion on exemptions. So as promised, I was double checking indeed about the exemption for original works of art. And indeed, you were right in the sense that there is an exemption even for LEDs, for LED light sources. So they do not need to comply with the eco-design requirements when they are made by the artist himself or herself in a number that is below 10 pieces. So just to confirm also for the participants online who was interested in this aspect, indeed, these kind of products are exempted from eco-design requirements, for the moment at least. So this said, I can move to the next presentation. I don't know why, but it's in a different template of Lighting Europe. So before it was in green, and now you see a blue background. In this session, I will concentrate on sustainability, the sustainability tsunami, as Catherine called it. There is a number of sustainability-related new legislations that have been defined by the European institutions and that will affect also the lighting sector. So these are not lighting specific legislations, but in a way or another do affect also the lighting sector. Before really looking at each of these new legislations, and I picked a selection of these that I thought might be of major interest for the audience. I would like to do a step back, so to let's get reminded where all of this comes from. All of this has a political background somehow. That is the the first Ursula von der Leyen Commission legislative mandate. You might be well aware that the pillar of the previous European mandate has been the European Green Deal. The European Green Deal is a set of legislations that basically try to bring the European continent towards carbon neutrality by 2050. So it's set in law that Europe needs to become carbon neutral by 2050. It's set in the climate law. Now, to do that, the Commission has developed, and then the other two legislators have developed the new legislations from, let's say, both the production side and the consumption side. So before, with the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products regulation, we have addressed the production, so the design of the products, how to make sure that products circulating on the European market are sustainable. Now we will look more closely to the consumption side, so how the institutions try to make sure that also the consumers go towards sustainable purchase decisions. But before moving to that, one of the most complex new regulations that have been defined by the European institutions is the new regulation on packaging and packaging waste. The overall objective is to make sure that the packaging circulating in the European market is sustainable, the footprint of the packaging is reduced as much as possible all along the life cycle of the packaging itself. It sets very ambitious targets on member states, on manufacturers, on producers of packaging, but also of products that are inserted, let's say, in the packaging themselves. So this regulation has entered into force at the beginning of this year, in February 2025. And it will start applying in August 2026. So we have an 18 months of, let's say, transition. Also, I want to mention that this has become a regulation, not a directive anymore. This means that basically the new requirements will start applying automatically, directly, once the application date is achieved. What are the main aspects of this regulation that affect lighting also? First of all, the regulation introduces three new harmonized labels. Two are mandatory, one on the material composition of the packaging and one on the reusability of the packaging, and then one voluntary label on the recycled content of the material of the packaging. Then the other important aspect is the minimization of packaging. So for sales packaging, the weight and volume must be reduced to the minimum necessary. The Commission will set through standards, harmonized standards within 2 years, the specificities for packaging type, about in particular the weight and the volume of the packaging, and also very importantly for transport, group and e-commerce packaging, a new empty space ratio has been introduced of a maximum of 50%. So this means that basically the difference between the packaging and the product that is contained shall be by maximum 50%. This is one of the aspects where we were very active in the past years as Lighting Europe during the legislative negotiations, because at a certain point a draft was circulating with a maximum empty space ratio of 15%, for electronics. So lighting, we consider that falls under the big category of electronics. And so, of course, this would have been a problem when selling online or transporting a luminaire, for example, that has a specific or particular shape. You understand how critical it could have been to have a empty space ratio maximum 15%. So we were able somehow to convince, if you remember the Brussels bubble, during all this process, we were able to convince that it was not a feasible target. Then another aspect that is regulated or important targets that are introduced are on the reusability of the packaging. For transport packaging, there are specific reuse targets that have been introduced, but I will go into details afterwards. And also worth mentioning that there is a full reusability target by 2030 for transport packaging in certain cases, so in particular when an economic operator is transporting the packaging between two sites that belong to the same economic operator all over Europe, or between two sites of a different economic operator but in the same member state. So in this case, from 2030, the packaging will have to be fully reusable. So I said that the packaging regulation is now a regulation, not a directive anymore, because the European Commission, but stakeholders in general, have considered absolutely important to create harmonization in the European Union when it comes to packaging. We are facing a big fragmentation of regulations on packaging. So many national legislations that differ from one country to another, of course, hampering the full circulation and free circulation of goods, even by the same operator who is operating in different member states. So you might be aware of the French three-man decree. Lately, also in Spain, a new Spanish decree on packaging has been developed. So there is a strong need of harmonization. So through this packaging regulation, hopefully we will go towards, let's say, an harmonization of regulations. So to dive a bit more deeply on the harmonized labels, so from August 2028, most of the packaging that are circulating on the EU market will have to carry harmonized pictogram, which indicates the material composition of the packaging. So the objective is to facilitate the waste sorting by the consumers. So currently the European Commission is developing this harmonized label on the waste sorting instructions. We have been involved together with many other stakeholders along the packaging value chain because there was a draft again circulating from the Commission and its consultants, where basically it was requested to indicate the material composition through words that would have needed to be translated in each member state. And so we were really active in asking to avoid any wording on this kind of labels. So for the difficulties that this would have created to manufacturers, and to, in general, when we talk about the labels, to prefer language neutral labels as much as possible. Then another mandatory label or information that needs to be provided to the consumer is about the reusability or the non-reusability of the packaging, and this can be provided through a QR code. Also, the packaging regulation specifies that if the product is subject to the digital product passport, this information could be incorporated in the same QR code. And then, as I mentioned, there is one voluntary label on the share of recycled content of the packaging, but this will not be mandatory, but voluntary. Then, as I said, some strong packaging minimization targets. The packaging has to be reduced to the maximum level possible. This means also that the packaging that is not needed for its functional purpose will be prohibited. So, for example, double walls or force bottoms that are not needed technically will be prohibited. So we see sometimes today, even to show to make the product appear larger, there is, let's say, packaging that is utilized that is not fully needed. It will be completely prohibited once this regulation starts applying. Then again, I mentioned the empty space ratio that will start applying from 2030 of maximum 50% for transport, group, and e-commerce packaging. And also I want to specify that in the empty space, it is considered to be included also fillers, air cushions, bubble wraps, and so on. So this will be considered as empty space. Then the reusability targets, again, just to recap, for transport and sales packaging, we go towards a reusability target of 40%. So the 40% of the packaging that is used in transport and sales packaging will need to be reusable by 2030, and by 2040 we have an even more ambitious target of 70%. Then again, I say the full reusability target of 100% from 2030 in certain cases. So I repeat again, when it's the packaging is used to transport products between two sides of the same economic operator within the European Union, or between one side of one economic operator and another economic operator, but in the same member state. And then also for group packaging, there are reusability targets of 10% by 2030 and 25% by 2040. Worth mentioning is that the cardboard boxes are excluded from these reusability targets for quite easily understanding reasons, and also micro enterprises do not need to comply with these requirements. So this was, let's say, a complex and a long story made as simple as possible on the packaging regulation. Now, as I said, we move on the consumption side of the story. With the Empowering Consumer for the Green Transition Directive, it was a new directive also defined by the European institutions in the past mandate. It has been published, it entered into force last year, but now being a directive, this needs to be transposed into national legislation. And the member states have 2 years to do that. So by September 2026, the requirements will start applying. This directive amends 2 other, let's say, previous existing directives, one on unfair commercial practices. It amends it by expanding the definition of misleading action towards consumers, but also by prohibiting certain misleading or too generic green claims. Also, this directive amends the Consumer Rights Directive by establishing a new harmonized label on the legal and commercial guarantee. I will not repeat too much. So as I said, there is a broader, let's say, scope or definition of unfair commercial practices, and also a clear, let's say, avoidance or restriction on two generic green claims that are not sufficiently verified. This will be also prohibited by this directive. And as I said, also this new directive introduces a new harmonized label. The objective is to provide the consumer with information on the legal guarantee. So, as a minimum, this label will show in a harmonized way all over Europe the information about the 2-year legal guarantee that applies in Europe, but also the Commission is defined the harmonized way to inform consumers about eventual additional national legal guarantee, but also a possible commercial guarantee applied by the producer of the product. Now I move to another legislation that is the European taxonomy. I don't know how many of you know about this legislation that is quite broad, very ambitious in the sense that it touches several sectors of the economy. The overall objective was to define green activities. So the European Commission has developed a classification system to identify which economic activities can be considered as green according to this taxonomy. The objective is to attract investments on these economic activities that can be considered green. Lighting is partially covered, let's say, by this EU taxonomy under the climate delegated act of taxonomy. In particular, the manufacture of light sources rated in the highest 2 populated classes and the manufacture of lighting controls are considered green under the EU taxonomy. We identified as Lighting Europe, let's say, an issue, and that is the fact that with only this limited, let's say, coverage of lighting, some lighting products are excluded or at least are not explicitly mentioned in the taxonomy. So in particular, luminaires are not mentioned at all, and even more outdoor lighting is not covered at all in these definitions. So we have been working in the past couple of years first to develop an internal position. We have now this position. We have recently published that on our website, where basically we ask all controllable LED-based luminaires to be included in the EU taxonomy. And we are in continuous contact with the European Commission to include this economic activity in the EU taxonomy as well. Now, just to explain very simply, how does it work to check if your economic activity is taxonomy aligned? First of all, your activity needs to be compliant with one of the objectives under the EU taxonomy. Technical screening criteria are set in very long delegated acts by the European Commission. So, for example, I said lighting is only partially covered. It's covered under the economic activity manufacture of energy efficient equipment for buildings. So that's where we are at least partially mentioned. But as I said, another big part of the lighting industry, manufacturing industry, is not covered at all. Luminaires, outdoor lighting, in particular, those that raise most of the concerns. Then the economic activity. So on the one hand, it needs to be compliant with these technical screening criteria, but also at the same time should not make any harm to another environmental objective under the EU taxonomy, and at the same time make sure that it meets the minimum social standards. Now, I want to reassure you on the fact that the EU taxonomy is not mandatory, so it's not. It's something different from the eco-design requirements that we were looking at earlier today. It's not mandatory. It's meant to attract investors on the activities that are considered green. To do that, the companies have to carry out the reporting exercise, so have to report on the level of alignment to the taxonomy technical criteria that are set in these delegated acts, in particular looking at the turnover of the company, looking at the investments, so the CapEx, and looking at the operational expenditures carried out by the companies. Also, I want to mention that as of today, only large enterprises are obliged to disclose information about the taxonomy alignment, but we are learning from our members that because many of their clients have to report on the level of alignment to taxonomy, they are indirectly impacted because they receive requests to show the level of alignment of their own activities anyway. So they are indirectly impacted by this reporting under the EU taxonomy. So even though they do not need to report, they are requested by their own clients about the level of alignment to the EU taxonomy. So this is also the reason why we are so active on this piece of legislation as well. Here I already mentioned everything. Again, today we are only partially covered, only for energy efficient equipment for buildings, so only indoor lighting, only light sources rated in the two highest populated classes, only the manufacture of lighting controls, and as Lighting Europe, we are trying to take care of that, and we are proposing that controllable LED-based luminaires are included in the EU taxonomy. But this is completely, say, still work in progress, lobbying work that we are doing. So until now, I have focused on the climate change mitigation objective under the taxonomy. So when an economic activity is considered as substantially contributed to climate change mitigation. Then under the EU taxonomy, we have another objective that is circular economy. And here lighting is covered. And the manufacturing of a lighting product could be covered, but when it meets all the technical screening criteria that are set, I have only, let's say, mentioned here the title of the paragraph, but then under this paragraph, very tight and let's say ambitious targets or technical screening criteria set on, for example, the lifetime of the product, the repair and the guarantee that is provided. I remember, for example, for the commercial guarantee, a minimum of 5 years is mentioned as a technical criteria, but also very stringent criteria on recyclability, hazardous substances, and so on. As I said, I would like to repeat that the taxonomy is not mandatory, so it doesn't affect, let's say, the ability to put on the market the product, but somehow it affects the way your company might be perceived on the market, starting from your clients or investors. For example, banks also have started to report on the level of alignment to the EU taxonomy, so they have to report on basically where they invest or the loans that they provide to companies, if these loans are aligned or not to taxonomy. Now another piece of legislation that affects partially the lighting sector is the Right to Repair Directive. Overall, the objective is to make sure that the repair is preferred over replacement in case of a defective product. The main, let's say, requirements apply not to lighting, but to other, let's say, product groups that are already covered, that already are, let's say, that have in their eco-design regulations specific repairability requirements. For example, on there are some product groups that have already listed the spare parts that they have to make available to the consumers, or the time of the delivery of the spare parts. So this is not the case for lighting today, but this is something that could come in the next future, exactly because it already exists for other products, mostly home appliances. So for this kind of products that already have repairability requirements, basically the manufacturer has an obligation to repair the product if the consumer requests so, even after the legal guarantee has expired. Instead, what already applies will apply to lighting once the directive is transposed in national legislation, is the fact that if a product becomes defective during the legal guarantee and then it is repaired, there is an automatic extension of the legal guarantee that applies only once for 12 more months of warranty that is indeed, in this case, extended. And this applies to all, let's say, transactions that happen with the consumers. So it only covers consumer lighting products that will have to indeed see their legal guarantee expanded in case of repair for 12 more months. So here I specify it's not for lighting yet, but just to give you a sense of what already applies for other products and might come also for lighting. So as I said, there is for some products the list of mandatory spare parts that need to be made available to the consumers, but also the repair is set to be done by a certain time frame at a reasonable price according to the Commission. And in the meantime, during the repair, the manufacturer could also provide a replacement product for the duration of the repair. Talking about the spare parts, I also would like to mention that the manufacturers should not interfere with the use of second-hand or 3D printed spare parts used by independent repairs, as long as, of course, the products remain compliant with the safety requirements. So again, this does not apply to lighting, but we see applying already to other product groups and could come for lighting as well. This will be defined when the lighting regulations will be reviewed. I already said that what applies already to lighting instead is the extension of the legal guarantee. I will not repeat. I think I covered all these aspects. Now, one piece of the European Green Deal that maybe for once doesn't come only with, let's say, new requirements or restrictions, but that we believe comes with some opportunities for our sector is the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, the EPBD. This was revised also in the previous European term. It has already been published. The European Commission in June has presented guidelines on how to apply this directive. because it's a directive, so it needs to be transposed international legislation by the member states. The main aspects of this directive are the indoor environmental quality. It's, let's say, a newly come definition that has been introduced, moving from the traditional air quality that was only focusing on the air aspect of the building. Now the definition has been broadened to indoor environmental quality, and here we see a potential for lighting to be included. So not only any more energy efficiency focus, but in general, let's say, a broader definition of performance of buildings that is covered. What is positive and that we very strongly advocated for in the legislative process is the fact that automatic lighting controls are mandated in the EPBD, at least in the non-residential buildings. So this is very positive, we believe, because the public sector, the public building sector, should and can indeed lead by example by introducing new positive requirements. And also something new that has been introduced is the smart readiness indicator of the buildings. So it's a new indicator that can provide information about how smart ready the building is. So the Commission will work on the delegated act to define how to indeed provide this smart readiness indicator. I already mentioned that a broader concept of indoor environmental quality has been introduced. So not only looking at air quality anymore, but also other aspects, thermal comfort, acoustic comfort. But what is relevant for us is the visual comfort. So the role that is played by lighting. We have developed our own position on the EPBD. As I said, we believe this directive comes with a lot of opportunities for the lighting sector. The implementation phase in the member states will be crucial. So this is where we need to partner very closely with our national association members to monitor, let's say, the way the EPBD is implemented at the national level. The objective is to make sure that the strong potential of automatic lighting controls is fully endorsed and recognized in the implementation phase. And also, as I said, the indoor environmental quality, let's say, opens a door to also lighting, but we have to make sure that in the implementation at national level, this is fully recognized. And in our position, we invite the member states to refer to existing standards when taking care of indoor environmental quality, looking at lighting. And last but not least, I thought that it would be important to mention, especially with this audience that is looking at, let's say, application of lighting that goes a bit beyond the usual, let's say, general application. So I'm thinking about artistic lighting or on public buildings and similar applications of lighting. First of all, artificial light at night is not legislated today at European level, so there are no regulations or specific requirements at European level. We know that there are many national, but in many cases regional legislations that apply to light at night to avoid what is known as light pollution. So what we are asking for to the European legislators is to have at least a European approach, because of course dealing with different regulations at the regional national level makes it too difficult for in general the stakeholders in the value chain, the lighting value chain, to be compliant. I know that in Italy there are 18 different regional laws on light at night. I don't know what is the situation in Belgium exactly, but yeah, what we are asking for is a European approach to this. We are in continuous contact with other stakeholders on this topic. So, for example, with NGOs, Dark Sky is a well-recognized one at global level. We are working in some European-funded projects on this topic. We are in the advisory board of this Plan B project. It's not mentioned here, but if there are lighting designers among the participants, I also want to mention that we are in a very good contact with the ILD, so the International Association of Lighting Designers, because it's something, let's say, topic light at night that we also want to, on which we want to collaborate with lighting designers as well. And here are some the four pillars, the four principles that we believe should guide artificial light at night. So very quickly I will mention them. So first of all light should have a clear purpose. The light should be directed only where it is strictly needed. The light should not be brighter than what is needed, as necessary for the purpose. And also the light should be adapted to the task that it is designed for, or even better, turned off when it is not required at all. So with this, I covered, let's say, the sustainability legislation that even though are not lighting specific, do affect the lighting industry and the lighting sector as a whole.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do you have any timing on all this stuff, all this new?
We have that. So many of these are directives, so they will need to be transposed in national legislation, and in general, a 2-year period is given to member states, but we are almost there because they entered into force last year. So 2 years is meaning next year, basically 2026.
It's very fast.
Yes,
So
the packaging is the one that I believe has a longer period, but also because you have seen the targets and the restrictions are quite tough. So we will have a bit more years, 2028, 2030, as a general principle. And for light at night, there are no regulations. It's one of those topics that we are trying to push proactively towards the Commission. So we are asking a European approach to try to create a bit more harmonization.
Yes, the Plan B project, it's also happening with coordination in Ghent, with that UGent, where the idea is to look for the legal stuff behind, because there's nothing, until now there was nothing. So Jana is coordinating it from Ghent here at UGent. Very interesting for people involved with outdoor lighting. For the EPBD,
yes,
we have our own Belgian EPB legislation. This is, like you say, the local way how to deal with it. So what does that mean? Is it already affected, this EPBD? Yes, it was already.
So it already existed,
Yeah.
The energy performance of building.
Yeah.
Now
it has been revised.
Yeah, it has been revised. So the revision, let's say, has entered into force last year.
Yes.
And again, it's 2 years time for the revision to be transposed.
Okay, because what I see here is that lighting controls will become mandatory.
Yes.
So that will be a big change
For no
in building
residential
new buildings where lighting controls should be there. No choice, you have to.
For non-residential buildings.
Yes.
So we hope that in the implementation phase of the directive, also residential buildings will be touched. But this is left, let's say, to the choice of member states.
Yes. On the other hand, it's including visual comfort as well. So there will be a better balance between the light you get and the energy efficiency, I
Yes.
suppose.
Yes.
And what about lighting for humans? If I speak about integrative lighting or human-centric lighting, which we know is effective, and we are still doing research on that. But one of the hurdles is always the fact that you need more lights, maybe for a short period, but you need a bigger installed base. And that is in conflict with what you have to report for our Belgian EBB legislation. So hopefully that will be a good way to get out of it, because until now it's really stopping the progression of human-centric lighting, because there you have to make the choice. Okay, as a builder, as an owner, you have to take everything in account, and you have solars, and you have heating, and everything is counting. But lighting is very important, and if your lighting installed base is even having a bigger impact, then maybe they will decide not to take it. So with the new, probably it will help.
Yes, indeed, we see positive the fact that not only the pure energy efficiency is considered in the performance of the building, but this new concept of indoor environmental quality is introduced. So there is room for lighting. Lighting is one of the aspects of this indoor environmental quality, and we as Lighting Europe, we really invite the member states to look at the existing European standards on the quality of lighting that should be incorporated in the new national.
So there's work for lighting designers as well, because until now it was often also a problem. That's good news. That's not only bad news. I think that's good news. Question about semantics. It's not coming from me. About Ali's position on light at night. How is a clear purpose interpreted? One is the line drawn. It's from artistic standpoint, visual, poetic, emotional purpose, an acceptable, clear purpose.
So I'm afraid I don't have an answer to these questions, also because light at night is not a topic that I'm personally covering in Lighting Europe, but I would maybe welcome Bram to drop me an email so that I can put him in contact.
It was also his question about his artistic.
Yeah, I see that there is.
I had one with the one on the right too. The light is adapted to suit task activities turned off when not required. But what about the city environment where you have artistic lighting on a building? It's not required. It's just to create an atmosphere. So yeah. I think it's not something. It's not a direction we really want to do.
Very few.
You can switch off lights on the main roads when there's no cars passing. That's okay. But when you go to
when you have an artistic one becoming.
Yes. So I think it's a bit dangerous to do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective and viewpoint. Now I think we all agree that we need to take care also of the environmental impacts of certain choices, but on the other hand, defending still an artistic, let's say, aspect of our sector. So the position paper that I was mentioning is a very first one, and also it came after very, let's say, intense internal discussions, and also it comes from the lighting manufacturing perspective. So we have just launched the
third one.
Yeah, we have just launched, as I said, interactions with other actors from the NGOs, but also the lighting designers. So I think that in the next months we will intensify the interactions with the lighting designers
and lighting
especially.
artists, because even that is a separate group
Yes.
of stakeholders. Lighting.
I don't know. Lighting artists are, let's say, gathered in any associations, or I'm
Sure.
Sure.
if there is a reference point to talk to this sector.
Maybe Bram knows about
Yeah, maybe Bram knows. Let us know, Bram.
Yes.
And safety becomes also more.
Yeah. Some people questions here.
I have one on the packaging directive. It was mentioned that there will be labeling enforced by Europe. We already invested a lot of money in complying with the French Trimont legislation. So I think the symbols that were chosen there are not bad. It's quite a good system. Are there discussions about keeping everything which has been done towards Trimont, that it will be compatible with the new packaging legislation? Because otherwise we will have to change again all packages, and it has a really big economical impact for manufacturers.
What you are saying could apply to every member state,
Course,
because they have operators who are active in other member states probably needed to be compliant with other legislations. So indeed, I see, let's say, a change somehow of approach towards Trimont in particular, where also Lighting Europe was very active against this decree. Also, we supported a compliant that now the Commission has carried in front of the European Court of Justice against this decree. But as you said, also our member companies now are claiming that they needed to invest a lot to be compliant, and that at this stage stepping back is not the most appropriate action anymore. But yeah, I'm afraid that at a certain point you will have to apply the new harmonized labels on the sorting, on the waste sorting, when it will be ready in the next years. But at least it will be one for all Europe.
What about penalties, not only for packaging, but for instance also for greenwashing? Where can you find something like this?
So the sanction side is one of those aspects that are addressed at national level. So for all these directives, it's at the sanctions are set at national level, not at Europe. The European directive gives some guidance, let's say, on how these sanctions should be designed. But
Economy in Belgium is doing the testing of the lamps. If it's a lamp that is allowed to be on the market because of energy efficiency, they do the testing, or they organize the testing. So probably that's a logical way. I have a question about the preparatory study that was launched years ago for creating the SLR legislation or regulation, and it was called, you had the light sources was one, and the other was the lighting systems. What happened with that lighting systems study? Is there anything that was used of that? Is it somewhere in whatever legislation? Have you ever heard of it? No.
It's not in the legislation. It is a concept that I hear coming back once in a while. So somehow it's part of our now let's say position that we are developing for the revision of the lighting regulations. So I think we will ask to look at the lighting system level rather than
I see
the
bits and parts everywhere in EPBD and taxonomy and whatever, but because yes, it is not just a luminaire, it is about controlling this luminaire, it's about having a system that is, wow.
Yes, I think we are not there yet.
No, okay.
Just to mention, let's say, personal experience somehow, as Lighting Europe, we decided to embark in an adventure a couple of years ago to retrofit all our lighting in our office using products from our companies, smart products and so on. And today we are facing big difficulties in making these products talk to each other. And so I don't think we are at that point yet.
Yeah. And what about the right to repair?
Yes.
Yes, you mentioned that it's in fact a manufacturer that would be repairing things that are broken or can be used again. But what if the installer, and I think it's important for your association, what if the installer does the repair? Will this be allowed? First question. Second question, what would be his responsibility? Is he becoming a manufacturer then? And has he legal responsibilities to take? How do you see that?
Yeah, I believe that so the Right to Repair Directive introduces an obligation to repair for the manufacturer. So in case you sell a consumer product and it becomes defective, then if the consumer comes back and asks for repair instead of the replacement, then the manufacturer is obliged to repair the product.
Okay.
By the way, within a reasonable time frame, the reasonable price, and so on. When it comes to, let's say, external players that can repair, the manufacturer, since the manufacturer cannot, let's say, deter the practice of repair by others. So, as I mentioned, I think should not deter the use of second-hand products or even 3D printed products. But this is the part of the directive that does not apply to lighting today.
Okay.
So this has been introduced quite recently for other products, and I think we will see how it affects.
Because it has been a discussion for years concerning retrofits. And then I think about repairing and I say, okay, this is quite not the same situation, but it looks very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, something should be, well, organized to get this clear, because it's still a discussion after 10 years. And
yes,
nobody knows. And some people take risks, and others use it to persuade the customer not to go into retrofit. But then I think, yes, retrofit is in fact also a kind of circular way of dealing with it. So how does this fit in the whole system? That's the question. But
it's not defined.
Not defined yet.
No.
I'm looking if there are some other. Yes, why is outdoor excluded? It's Barbara who's asking. Barbara.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Why
Do
is
you
it
know? Do you have any clue why the outdoor lighting was not included into the all the regulation about circular lighting?
Yes. Well, I think it was simply an overlook by the European Commission. So because taxonomy covers, really, I invite you to have a look to the delegated act. It's, I think, 78 pages or even more. So it covers many economic activities. So one of these activities was the manufacture of energy efficiency equipment for buildings. And under this economic activity, lighting is mentioned, but only for the light source and the lighting controls. And so when, let's say, putting in practice this regulation, our members, and so first of all, the big companies that have to report on the taxonomy alignment, but then also the others, as I said, were indirectly impacted. And they realized that okay, stretching a bit the interpretation, but stretching quite a lot the interpretation of the wording. One could include the luminaires, but only for indoor because it's only for energy efficiency equipment for buildings. So that's why we consider that outdoor lighting is not included today. And also luminaires are not mentioned explicitly. And so we are really in, I think, in positive contact with the European Commission. They understand that it's an issue. Also, taxonomy was a completely new, let's say, experience from, again, the Commission was very creative in building up this framework. And they always say that it's a lively document, so that it will need to be revised continuously. And so that's where we are trying to play our part.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And what about commercial sites? Is this somewhere included in? Because also that is, if it's about artificial light at night, well, it is disturbing very often, and it is confusing people on the road, and it's not really good regulated. They don't understand the aspect of control here either. The luminance is so bright because they want to be seen in day, but then at night you have lots of lights. So even that is, I think, a topic to follow, but nothing about that. Sorry for that. Okay, do we have other questions or other remarks?
Here again, I inserted some hyperlinks in the presentation, so you are invited to look at them.
That's very interesting. You have also the website from European Commission. This has been a bit become better. Yes, because in the beginning it was very few information on that. For the white papers, as I told, they are very interesting. I have read the early versions of the white papers. I'm not able to get into it, but you can buy them, or you can ask them through associations like Agoria for Belgium, IP en France, and so on. So they can get you to it. So saying that, we will try to fill in the knowledge pill. So you get material. The idea is not to make it too heavy. That's the idea of a knowledge learning pill. It should be in short pieces, small pieces. So we will try to deal with that. We'll put that on the website later on. Same for the all presentations. The presentation from Greet included some small movies. I will try to get the movies separately, because once you have a PDF, you can't open the movie. So I'll try to put the links beside that as well. So that's what I try to generate in the next few weeks for this project. I'll also invite everybody to follow up next sessions. They're all free and they're all available online. I thank you. I thank my audience online. I thank my audience here present in person. Very grateful to see some people. And for the speakers, of course, a big thank you. Un grand merci in French. You understand that. Dank u. Great. I have a small attention for you. And see you in October for the next session. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.